Welcome into another edition of the Old North State Sports Show, folks. Another day, more Panthers news, and of course, we're going to get you caught up on everything. I also want to say, I promise we have non-Panthers stuff in the works. It's just been a lot of Panthers news. That stuff's been taken off from my channel, so I'm going to continue to make it, and that's my bread and butter. Today, talk about the addition of a new wide receiver for the Carolina Panthers. Also hear an audio clip from an interview with Dan Morgan on his plans for the offseason the team needs. Get our take there. And I do have another piece of work that I've got going on for offense and defensive grades for the Carolina Panthers. And in doing that research, I identified a hidden gem on the offensive line. It's someone you may or may not be aware of, but this guy was off the charts. And honestly, I could have called the last segment of this the safety dance, because what are we going to do with the safety position? And I only brought this up because I saw someone referencing the only safety really that's on the roster right now in Damani Richardson and how he could be an answer. But I don't know if I'm ready to crown him as a starting level safety. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. So let's jump right into it, folks. Kicking things off, the Panthers signed Bryson Tremaine to a reserve future deal. 6'4", 212-pound Tremaine spent the last 2 years on the Commanders practice squad. He was originally an undrafted free agent from Stanford, appeared in 2 games for Washington last year. And if you are someone who is a fan of tracking stats, he had 1 catch for -2 yards. But hey, you know what? I like this approach. Right now, as you build out the roster, you get to go back to up to 90. So trying to get that in place. And as much as we love undrafted free agents, and hey, we've seen some really good ones here recently, I'm a fan of bringing in guys that have been here a year or 2, maybe 3, that you can add to your roster now and allow, the roster to be more competitive. And I think guys that have that experience, they've been in the NFL, they've seen the game, they've been on an NFL team, they've been on a practice squad. I think all those things are beneficial. They've been on an NFL training program, so they know the ins and outs. They know the NFL playbook. I know it varies from team to team. The complexity of that versus a kid coming out of college, I think it helps. Let's add some veteran, undrafted guys or guys that are kind of fringe players and give them a chance. Who knows where these guys will pan out? We know the roster churn that happens, but I'm all for it. Now, let's take a look here at Dan Morgan. So he spoke to Carla Gebhardt. First of all, shout out to Carla Gebhardt. I listened to her when she's with Charlotte Sports Live. I also listened to her on Mac and Bone on WFNZ. She's also on several other segments. Really good content, but she sat down with Dan Morgan, and we're going to play a clip from that where he addresses what the Carolina Panthers are going to be looking at in the offseason.
Let's talk about needs right now. And I know you're probably, got a list of all the things that you want to do this off season, and you don't want to give away anything either, right? And I definitely understand that. But where are the needs on this roster, at least from a broad perspective of what you can talk about right now and what you're looking for in the players that you're going to bring here?
Yeah, I think, we're going to look to bring, passionate football players, first of all, and then we're going to look for playmakers on both sides of the ball. So defensive side, guys that can take the ball away, guys that can affect the quarterback, and then on the offensive side, guys that can make plays, whether, receiver, tight end, guys that could just make big plays. We were kind of missing that element on both sides of the ball this past year. So, we'll attack that. And then, I think on the defensive side, our front, we got to get a little stronger there so we're able to stop the run. But, we're just going to look to get better in every avenue.
There you have it, folks. Not one side of the ball, both sides of the ball. Playmakers on both sides. So when fans right now, and I don't think this is any shocking revelation to anyone, but I think some people think the offense is better than it was. And sure, there were a lot of bright spots on the offensive line. There were a lot of bright spots with Bryce Young in particular. with Jalen Coker, Adam Thielen per usual, bits and pieces of Jatavian Sanders. We know, hey, we got to try to figure out who the number one wide receiver is going to be. Who can we bring in? But I think it's important to also have that reference point when you're thinking about the number 8 pick, or if we trade back, who that pick could be, because it's very likely it could be a wide receiver, it could be a tight end, and at some point, another running back could come off the board. I already had another running back on my board in the 3rd round. So I think all things are in play. You need football players. You need to upgrade at every position. And I can't remember the quote, and I saw it. Every general manager is looking to replace you, is looking to replace the 53 players on their roster. Really, of course, the 11 starters are the most important. They're going to go through and analyze, is there some way to upgrade that position somewhere through the draft, in free agency? I got to tell you, this draft class this year in particular is not the greatest. I mean, I've heard folks, as I've listened in, say you're really talking about maybe 18 or 19 first-round grades, the rest second, third. That tells you that this is a weak draft class. So if you think that the Panthers, because they've got, 11 draft picks, tied for the most all time, I don't know if they'll retain all those by the time we get there. I feel like they're going to trade some away. But the Panthers going into this draft, I think it just sets the tone that, hey, yeah, you got all these picks, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be getting guys that are contributing, which is a very important reason why we got to think about free agency and look at some of these trades. And no, I don't have this on here today, but I know Cooper Kupp's name is coming up as well. I don't know that that's realistic, looking at his dollar amount, his age, his injury history. I just think the Panthers fans sometimes throw their name into the ring with every single player that becomes available, and I just don't know that the fit's going to align. But we'll see. We'll let it all play out. Now, speaking of offense and playmakers, there was one guy in particular that I wanted to highlight. And again, I'll have my full breakdown of the offense and defense coming soon. Working on that this week. I've actually already done the work. I just have to record the video. So that'll be coming. But until then, we can have a little bit of a preview here. Like, why not? Taking a look, and here I am jumping ahead with the one and only Damien Lewis. Folks, this guy is a true hidden gem, in my opinion. You look at his stats right here, and I'm coming around to PFF. I know I'm not the biggest fan, but I think there are some things on there that I really like. It helps me as I'm analyzing and putting this stuff together. 75.5 overall grade, which is 17th out of 135 guards in the NFL. His pass blocking grade was a 72, which ranks 30th, and his run blocking grade was 16th, 76.9. You think about 32 NFL teams, 2 guards on each team, 64. For him to be in the top tier, not just like the top half, like he's in the top tier, top quartile of guards. This guy's been great. Now, we do have to acknowledge there are some lapses and penalties. He recorded 6, which ranks 104th. And he did give up 6 sacks. So, of course, there's work to do there on the left side between him and Ike Ekwonu, especially when that's like your blind side as an NFL quarterback with Bryce Young at the helm. We know we got some work to do there. But overall, man, hats off to Damien Lewis, because I know Robert Hunt gets a lot of the credit. I know the offensive line gets credit. I know Damien Lewis also kind of had some struggles in camp, not struggles on the field, but off the field, getting up, getting ready to play. Fantastic season for him, man. And another really good, fantastic signing by Dan Morgan this offseason. We hope we can replicate all of this on the defensive side of the ball. Clearly the most important. And who knows what I just did there? I'm clicking buttons. Hit the wrong one. Now, as we get into this conversation around playmakers, let's talk about safeties. I mean, our entire safety room is up. Xavier Woods, Jordan Fuller, Nick Scott, Sam Franklin, Lonnie Johnson. And folks, I love Sam Franklin, but as I talk about upgrading the roster, you're talking about a special teams player. And those are important. You need special team players on your team. But as the Carolina Panthers, as your third, do you want your third or fourth best safety to only be a special teams player and not someone you can put out there? I know he's had his bright spots along the way, but I don't know. I don't know that I would put him up there in that tier. So I would be surprised if any of these guys come back. I know Jordan Fuller, Nick Scott, they can go. Xavier Woods probably gone. We'll see if Sam Franklin gets retained and Lonnie Johnson as well. So anyways, with that said, we're talking about one safety really on the team, and that's Damani Richardson. And Damani Richardson had a fantastic year as an undrafted free agent. Don't get me wrong. Took him some time to get up into the starting lineup. He's a really good football player, but I don't know that I'm ready to crown him as a starting safety for the Carolina Panthers. And yes, he could develop in the offseason. If you go back and look at his grades from this year, 60 overall, 60.1 to be exact, which was 108th out of 170 safeties, 58.6 in coverage, which was 101st. I'm not really worried about pass rush. And then his run defense was 79th, which was a 66.9. So pretty decent on run defense, not so great in coverage. And unfortunately, I mean, it depends on the type of safety, but you need to be able to play some type of coverage. Sure, there are a lot of safeties that play in the box, have to come up and defend the run. Like, that's just part of the game. But when you look at his overall 108, again, we do that math again, 32, add in another 32. You're in, the upper 90s? He's over in the 100 range. This guy is, at best, right now, a third to fourth string safety on most NFL rosters, which is fine. I think he is someone that could fill in as needed as he gets his feet under him. He's shown his ability, again, we saw it in the preseason, to find the ball, get interceptions, make plays. I like all those components of his game, but I don't know that I want him as the number one or number two option as a safety heading into next year. And it's the same thing in the receiving room. Like when I even talk of Xavier Legette or Jalen Coker, and it's no knock on them in particular. We just need a step above it. We need a tier above what we have, that VIP status type. Not that these guys can't get there and not that you don't want them to develop. But anyways, folks, that is going to do it for today's episode. I appreciate y'all tuning in. As always, this is Carolina Dad. Y'all have a good one.